Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name.
Hi, thanks for tuning in again to Armor of God. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And hopefully you'll be edified with what we've put together for you here. And this is going to be the final part of my interview with Father Joshua Waltz. And I hope you've learned something valuable from this interview, which I shared in the previous 2 videos. So apart from interviewing exorcists, I'll also be doing interviews like this with other priests in the future, perhaps interviewing a priest from the Middle East and ask how it is like over there, or a priest from Africa and how they are doing in the midst of persecutions. Anyway, for the clip of my interview with Father Waltz here in this video will be this. I asked him to share a story of healing or sort from his 17 years as a priest.
And there were some times in those 17 years where I was like, Jesus, help me. Oh my gosh. Like anybody who says that priests don't know what it's like to be a parent knows nothing about the priesthood. That's one of my big things. I don't give up on anybody. God never gave up on me. There were people in my life that never gave up on me. And if they would have, I don't know if I'd be here today. So we're going to make mistakes. We're going to make a lot of them. You know, Jesus says, how many times, Peter's like, how many times do I have to forgive? 7 times? Jesus like 70 times, 7 times. Like always, you got to keep doing it. Now, there are times that you have to keep your distance, right? Because there's some that are really toxic relationships. But whenever they come back, I'll receive them with open arms, man. That's the prodigal son, and I actually had kind of a cool experience of that. There's a guy, he's still really struggling, but again, ebb and flow, right? And it's a real struggle with addiction to alcohol and drugs. And but I'm his godfather. I brought him into the church in high school, and I've just had we could do a whole interview on this story. Like it's just incredible what's happened, both good and bad. But anyway, I had him kind of set up. Basically what happened is I got called. He called me in the middle of the night. It was like 3 and 4 in the morning. Just wasted drunk. He had drunk a 175 of vodka and done some meth, which I can't even fathom. Like I like scotch. I like a good drink, but like to put a 175, the big freaking bottle, like he put that down in one night, along with methamphetamine. So, and when I found him, he was like laying on the side of the street, and he's a big guy, he's like strong, athletic. So I was like trying to get him into my truck, and then I got him a hotel room, and then the next day he was sobering up, and I got him an apartment because I knew a friend of mine ran these kind of low income housing apartments, and got him set up with a job, and everything was going great for like 2 weeks. And then 3rd week hit, and he just disappeared. 4th week hit, and I was like, hey man, I could only get you a month free. Like we were trying, get you enough money so you could pay your next month at the apartment. He wasn't returning phone calls. So I went over with the guy who he had a key, master key, because he runs the whole thing. So we open up the apartment. The apartment is trash. Like, and I'm responsible for this, trash. There were like 12 garbage bags stacked high. There were stains all over the carpet. There were bottles of booze everywhere. There were drug paraphernalia. I mean, it looked like a drug house, or like I'm just sitting there and I look over at the guy and I'm just like, I am so sorry, man. And he's like, well, it happens. So him and I clean out this whole thing. And I'm driving home, and I didn't even provided him with furniture from my mom's house. And I'm driving home with all this crap in the back of my truck, and we had cleaned everything, and I'm covered in crap. Anyway, and I'm driving, and I'm like sitting there. I just remember I was like, in my head, I was like, I gave you everything, and you freaking threw it back in my face. And right then, man, God was like, don't forget when you did that to me. And I was just like, and then I'm like in tears, because I'm like thinking of my own conversion. And anyway, so about 8 months goes by, and I'm in the confessional. It's Advent. We're having a penance service, and it's over. It's, we started at 6. It was like 8:30, so we're finishing out and packing, getting everything ready. And I turn around, and he's standing there, this guy. And I'll never forget, like, what I know the prodigal son's a parable, but like what the father experienced in that moment is what I experienced. I didn't even care that what he had done anymore. I was just so happy to see him, because I mean, I was like, this guy's gonna he's living a life where he could be dead. And I worked a long time with him, and I just hugged him. We were both crying, and um, so yeah, I mean, I wish there was a happy ending to that story. It's not there yet. Um, he was doing really well, and then his mom committed suicide, and they found her on Mother's Day, and it just pulled him back into it. And so he's been kind of off the radar now for a while, but I have faith that they're gonna, you know, I just gotta pray for him, because I he's into stuff that could kill him, and you know, there's only so many chances you get. So anyway, but I'll never ever forget that feeling. Never forget that feeling. So anyway,
And I also asked his opinion on The Chosen.
say the same thing that Jesus said. If they're not against us, they're for us. I'm like, we don't. I don't know if everybody realizes right now the state of affairs, but it's pretty brutal. Like, what we need now more than anything is unity. And you know, I'm sure you're gonna get comments in this that I'm some liberal priest or what. I don't care. Like, again, living the truth, man. And this is what I believe, and I'm gonna say what I believe. And I I have watched The Chosen. I have yet to see anything that is so bad that I would say you can't watch that anymore. Are you kidding me? Like, we have music videos right now of people dressed up as the devil and aborted fetuses. And we're going to complain about this, like, thing that could be interpreted of the Blessed Virgin Mary not being immaculately conceived. I'm like, shut up. Like, how about you go and really make a difference, you know, with the stuff that's going on that's really a problem in the world? Why don't you go and attack that's boldly proclaiming the demonic, instead of these people who have created a global, I want to say this again, a global wide phenomena that is bringing people into union with Jesus Christ? Man, like, that's a problem. And you obviously don't realize how dire the situation is right now. Now, listen, if The Chosen comes out and, you know, they say, you know, Jesus is like, I am only a man, I am not God, I'd be like, yeah, don't watch that, man. It's a bad show. But these little things, and there's Catholics on set. Jonathan Rumi is like a rock star Catholic who's playing Jesus. And he talks about, if you watch the interviews, him and Dallas Jenkins go to war over stuff, because he's like, you can't. And it's cool, because I think that Catholics can watch it, Protestants can watch it. It gives you a little bit of a different view, actually, a big different view sometimes, of who Jesus was, but it's not heretical. And my gosh, like, I don't know. I mean, I have numerous times I've been brought to tears watching that show. Numerous times I've gotten new insights from that show. I have not seen them depart from the biblical narrative at all. Yeah, there is so much. Jesus said, you will know the tree by its fruit, and the fruit of The Chosen is not rotten. It is full of life. And so, yeah, if they're not against us, they're for us.
And I also asked him about the point in his life, that turning point where he decided to become a priest. I really love listening to this, and I hope you will too.
Man, I don't really know. I mean, so like, when I was 12 years old, I was an altar server. I was for when I was really young, and I really loved being, you know, serving at the altar, partially because it was something to do during mass, and I didn't just have to sit there. But the other part was there was something that kind of was inside of me to I don't know, partake or participate in something that was bigger than me. And so that was a big deal. And I became, I was like, server of the year when I was 12 years old. The bishop would call me personally, to serve, and especially for bigger masses. And so I think that was kind of like the beginning of it. But as all things, it became not cool anymore to be a server. And so went into high school, college. But I think the turning point was when I was in senior year. We took a trip to Rome, and honestly, I've always said this. The two reasons I wanted to be on this trip was, number one, the drinking age was like 16, and number two, there were two girls that I desperately wanted to date that were going on this trip too, and I thought this would be some good quality time that I could spend with them. And it turned out that God had other plans over there, as he always does. And when I was over there, I had we had, we were in the midst of two bishops. So one was Bishop Paul Zipfel, and the other one was Bishop John Kinney. And John Kinney had just been moved to St. Cloud, and Bishop Zipfel had just been appointed to Bismarck. And so they were both over in Rome for their ad limina visit, which is a visit every 5 years they have with the Pope. And prior to that visit, they have an invite that they can give, just one, to bring somebody to the meeting. There's a private mass with the Pope, and then you get to meet him afterwards. And then after that, you kind of go away, and the bishop has the meeting with the Pope. So we were over there. Usually it goes to the seminarians at the North American College. We didn't have any seminarians at the North American College at that point. Our group was over there. And so I was, we were informed by our two priest chaplains that two of us were going to go meet the Pope. And so there were 33 of us in the group, which I thought was pretty significant, the 33 years of Christ. And then after supper, we're like, all right, we're just going to pray to the Holy Spirit, just like the apostles, draw lots, basically, pick names out of a hat. And so I remember sitting there, and we're in this parking lot, and I was just like, and over there, I'd been really thinking about the priesthood because I had encountered the martyrs, and that was something that I'd never experienced before. The martyrs, it's just something, like they were willing to die for their faith. And I remember asking this question. This is really pathetic. I know this, but like I asked this question, I was like, what would I die for? After seeing all these men and women who would die. And, and they were all types of ages. They were young, they were old, they were men, they were women, whatever. And I just came back with the answer. Nothing. I don't think I would die for anybody or anything, which was pretty crushing, when you come to that realization that you're an arrogant jerk, and so these things were building in me, and like seeing the effect that the church had in Western civilization and culture, and just seeing that, that, as I initially said, being part of something bigger than myself. Anyway, so I was sitting there, and I was like, all right, I'm like kicking around this priesthood idea. And I was like, okay, well, God, if you want me to be a priest, pick my name out of the hat. And sure enough, my name was the second name picked out of the hat. There was the first name. It's kind of funny because once I said this prayer, I was like, oh no. I'm like, there's a 1 in 33 chance. Well, the 1 in 33 chance, and I'm going to get picked. And when the first name was picked, it was this girl that was in our group, and I was just like, oh, thank God. And my buddy's like, look at me like, what do you mean, thank God? And I'm like, oh, thank God she got picked. Man, I hope I get picked. And then the second name was mine, and I just I remember like just kind of like sitting back on the hood of this car, and I was like, my life is over. Like I just forfeited my whole life in one moment. And all my buddies are like, oh my gosh, like you're gonna go meet John Paul II. You're gonna meet John Paul II, the saint of our times. And all I could think of is like, I just gave up my life to God, and it's over, and life is gonna suck from here on out, and I'm gonna be miserable. And so anyway, I ended up going with the bishops, and I met John Paul II, which was an extremely, extremely powerful moment in my life. And I'd have to say that was probably where it kind of flipped. And there's a lot more to that story. Like I said, if you want to watch it, it's like an hour long. I promise. It's entertaining. It's fun. And it's all true, which is really the really crazy part. But that was kind of the turning point. There was a time when I kind of fell away from that, but that was the moment, I think, where God really kind of made it clear to me that he was asking something tremendously beautiful of me in my life.
Well, then that will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, and hopefully you've learned something useful from this video. Anyway, for those of you who'd like to support our works and you like what we do, I left a link to our PayPal donation in the description box below, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. And until the next one, stay safe, stay healthy, and may God bless you.
How to be a real man. You want to be a real man? How about you stop lying? Like, stop lying. Just say the truth. Just say what you mean. Live in the truth, and you will always be vindicated. And so I think that that's why Jesus says, like the works of darkness, they're done in the dark. Those who live in the light, expose things to the light. And God's in the light, and the enemy doesn't have any power in the light. And so if we can live in the truth, which is the light, I think it's a lot harder for the enemy to get at us. He's gonna use stuff around us. This is classic. If you look like Matthew 14, right? Peter walking on water. Why does Peter sink? Because he looks at what's going on around him, the stuff he can't control. It's the storm. When he's got his eyes on Christ, when he's looking at truth himself, he's walking on water. He's doing the impossible. But when he looks on the things around him that he can't control, that's when he sinks. And I think that the enemy does that all the time. You just shift your gaze off of Christ onto something that you can't do anything about. Like, I can't go out and stop the rumors. I can't go out and stop the gossip. It's too big. So why even freaking worry about it? Just stay focused on Jesus and be like, Lord, I'm going to live in the truth. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to stay with you, and you're going to take care of the rest. And he does, He does it in weird ways, though, man. Really weird ways. It's just like, I don't know. The great stories, I love the Lord of the Rings. I love the Chronicles of Narnia. The new one that I really love is the Wing Feather Saga. If anybody hasn't read that, it's fascinating, fabulously written book. Kind of in between Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia. But there's always these points, right, where it looks like they're just going to lose. It looks like the story's over. It looks like the whole plan is crumbling, and then something happens that nobody was expecting, and they get out of it and they keep moving forward. And I just, the great stories of our time really tell the great story of salvation.